Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Motor Slingers right here on
the Gunslinger and Motor Slingers syndicated radio network, people.
That's right. It's Motor Slingers, not Gunslingers tonight. That means that we have the one, the only Leon the Motor Man and George the Airplane Man in studio with us tonight.
Well, good evening, fellas. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Well, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
I'm excited every time I come here.
So are we, and so are the callers. In fact, Rick from the CRPA, as I told you guys last week, you know, he's got some family issues, so everybody is, when you're on your knees tonight, say a nice word for Rick, and he will be back next week, so we won't be having him this week. That means that we are live for phone calls all night tonight. What's that number?
Oh, wait a minute. I got that number.
You got that number.
In there. 866-870-5752. Again, 866-870-5752. And just call in and speak to the old motor man.
There you go.
George.
Because if it hums.
Oh, if it hums, purrs, or moves people, I'd love to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
And if it goes boom, we'll answer that.
Goes boom, bang, hums, purrs, moves people, we're doing it here, folks.
And if it have wings, ask for George.
There you go. We cover weed whackers, pop guns, you name it. We got you covered. Give us a call. Okay, so we haven't seen you guys for a little bit. What you been up to?
Well, I was concerned. I didn't know you was mad at us. Maybe George and I said something we didn't know, you know.
No.
It wasn't you, Leon.
Yeah.
I miss you. I listened to the show on the weekend. You guys do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
You do a good job.
Of imitating your old show. Thank you kindly.
We were kind of parlayed by the best over here. So,
No. Don't give me all that credit. But I had a good run, you know, 44 years on one station. That's pretty.
Wow, that is amazing.
It went by so quick. I'd have a hard time believing that.
Well, I was telling everybody a little bit ago, we are at the 1.5 year point since we started doing the Motor Slingers show.
Hey.
It's been 1.5 years because we did the very first one was New Year's Eve 1.5 years ago because Mark and Jimmy couldn't be here and I was going to be here alone. And I thought, I'm going to call Leon and see if he wants to do it. And that was our first one. And it was a huge success. So we said, hey, you know what? Let's keep going. And
well, I enjoy it. I miss all my listeners, you know, for so many years. They were all my friends. My listeners were my friends.
I agree.
Good time.
And you know what? They all are missing you already. They love that you both are in. You're getting so much love online. That's everyone online. Make sure that you're on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, or X, that you're liking this, you're sharing this, because we want to get these guys back out there and show everyone who the special guest we have here tonight. And then you guys show your love. You guys already have.
Give me too much credit.
And you know, Leon is looking good. You're already getting compliments, you sly dog, you.
Looking good.
Looking good.
Hello,
But
world.
everyone's so excited to see you both. And like I told you guys before the show, these are my favorite shows that we do.
That's my favorite show, right? And George's too. So.
We paid Jimmy to say that.
well, hey.
Pockets are light, but you know what? They're happy.
Okay, so if you want, give us a call. If you got car questions, make sure you call in, ask for Leon. Or if you got airplane, you call and talk to George. You got gun questions, you call and talk to Jeff. Give us a call. What's the number?
I think let's hand it over to the pro.
What's the number?
866-870-5752. You know, I give George is always amazes me when it comes. You know, I know a lot about airplanes too, but George is a historian when it comes to airplanes, and it is the truth. And I'm not saying it to brag on him or anything, but he really is. He knows planes the Navy used, the Army used, and the Marines used, and stuff I didn't even know about. You know, the Navy didn't like this plane because it was, I don't know. George is really a historian on the airplane issues.
I pay Leon to say those things.
And you are rich. Because he's told me a ton of stuff about the Corsair, and all I really know about the Corsair is the wing, you know. It just was the coolest looking airplane. And when I was a teenager, Bob Black Sheep, the TV show, came on, and of course, you know, with Bob Conrad, and it was a great show. I mean, kind of silly, but it was a great show. And I just fell in love with that airplane then, because I'm afraid to fly. I am at a 100%. You know, in the band, I flew everywhere. We always were going somewhere, and I flew from here to Alaska, and this was in 1990. And it was, well, from here to SeaTac, nothing. And then, you know, our manager being the manager that he was, we had a 4-hour layover in SeaTac. And back then, in 1990, there wasn't much to do in SeaTac. So that was really bad. And then when we left SeaTac and went to Anchorage, it was akin to a 1950 Chevy truck going over railroad tracks inside of an elevator. That was completely out of control. That was what that was like. And I said, that's it. We flew home. Piece of cake, you know, tailwinds all the way down, no stops, straight from, you know, from Anchorage to LA, and it was a piece of cake. But I said, that's it, and I have not been in an airplane since.
Well, it's normal. I think George agreed. Most people, you know, we grow up in a 2-dimensional world. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you're in a 3-dimensional world, and you're not used to that. The only time you've had that is when you had a bad dream, you were falling. Man, you know, when you're a kid, and that's fear, and that's what I tell people, and George too. When I tell people about flying, you know, I say, you know, the wind is the wind is one of the strongest things on earth.
Oh yeah.
You see what it is? It blows buildings down. It blows cities, destroys, and then the plane flies with the wind, you know, air. So air is the strongest thing around.
It was a rough flight. I'm just, you know, it was about 26 hours to get that 3.5 hours up there.
Gee,
it was brutal. And then, of course, we're heading kind of northwest, and you land going southeast. So he, you know, almost did a complete U-turn, pivot to land, and. At one point, the guitar player who was sitting across the aisle from me took a picture of me straight up.
Ooh.
And the look on my face was something like this.
Pure terror.
Absolute terror.
That scared me. Don't do that again.
Yeah, because we're on radio, just in case.
Horrifying. And I just said, that's it, guys. If you get a gig out of, you know, where it's airplanes, count me out. Get a replacement for me, and if there's driving, you know, I can drive anywhere.
I can drive anywhere.
But that was it, and we still had a ton of those.
Once you learn more about aviation and learn how it flies, why it flies, what makes it fly, all of this, it takes a lot of that fear away.
You know what bothered me was sitting there and not knowing nothing.
Yeah,
that's
just,
right.
The unknown.
I might as well be a cow in the back of the train. You know, I mean the whole, and it's like, what was that? And nobody's going to jump out. Hey, Jeff, this is what happened. It was
explain it down to them.
Okay, you know, you're just sitting there like, you know.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, and that drove me nuts.
Zero control, all fear.
Yeah.
Speaking of fear of flying, some years ago, the Doctor's Show on TV, and Julian Michaels was the hostess. They did a segment of fear of flying, and they got hold of me in my airplane to take them around and do the segment of that show. And the client, the patient, was actually fear of flying. And that little flight and the talk that the Dr. Julian did cured her.
Wow.
So
forget about it. I ain't
normally,
doing it.
Normally when people fly with me, they never fly ever again.
Upside down 90% of the
whatever.
way. Yeah, I could see. Okay. Well, you know, and speaking of being afraid of airplanes, let's go to Richard at the airport. Richard, how are you?
Good evening, you fantastic motor slingers.
What's going on, Richard?
Well, first of all, Leon, it was great seeing you and George last night.
Yeah, it's our pleasure to see you. You lightened up the place.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a shindig, huh, Richard?
Yeah, I want to mention, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but during forced landings, a lot of people, they break their hands. And that's something, that's why when they give you they tell you ready for impact, sometimes they'll tell you to put your hands under your legs. Because if a person breaks their hands in a wreck, they can't do anything. They can't get out of it. They can't help themselves.
Wow. So
you got to be careful of that. And I tell everybody, like when they're on the airlines, they should listen to what the flight attendants say. They should not be reading a magazine or looking at their phone during that briefing.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety first.
Last time I flew, there weren't no phones.
This show was all about safety first, and yes, absolutely.
Right.
All right.
So, yeah, that's...
Richard, we only got a minute left. We went a little long.
Okay.
Give us your joke.
All right. Just for Leon, what suburb in Los Angeles area has the most 18-wheelers?
No idea.
What's the question again? What?
Yeah, what suburb in Los Angeles has the most 18-wheelers?
Semi Valley.
Yeah.
Semi Valley. You got
Jimmy
it.
got you. All right,
Way to go, Jimmy.
thanks.
Okay.
We'll talk to you next week.
I'm reading this book.
I seen you.
God bless you, Richard.
Did you cheat?
No, I'm getting in the mind frame now. I think
that's scary.
I'm sneaking in.
All right, guys, you're listening to Motor Slingers right here on
The Gunslinger Syndicated Radio Network.
and we'll be back right after this.
Yes, sir.